second month of the year. February has passed us by, and March is upon us. That means it's time to stop and rank all 8 February new releases that I saw, from the worst to the I kind of enjoyed that. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your ranking of the February new movies that you saw. My list is not the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. As we go into this, I did miss a couple of movies that I really wanted to see. In particular, One Love, the Bob Marley film, but there was also a new Coen brother film that came out. And the problem was that my family was basically sick the entire month. I wasn't able to get out to go see the film. So instead, late at night, while, giving medicine to sick kids or whatever, ended up watching a bunch of direct-to-video films that were awful. Some of them actually weren't so bad, but it is what it is. Let's get started. In last place, Snow White and the Seven Samurai. Yes, there was a movie worse than Madam Web that came out this month. Came out actually just yesterday, direct to video, late at night. I was just like browsing Voodoo, and I saw Snow White and the Seven Samurai. I went, what on earth is that? What a great concept. Watch the trailer. First thing that pops up on screen in the trailer is The Asylum.
No! God, please, no! No! No, don't like that.
So I knew it was going to be dreadful. If you don't know what The Asylum is, basically it's a film studio that exclusively makes mockbusters and trash. So mockbusters are when Transformers comes out, they put out a movie called Transmorphers. See what they did there? They make ultra cheap versions of movies that are about to hit theaters. And if you remember, the new Disney live action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was supposed to come out in March of this year. So Asylum went light bulb, we'll make our own version of Snow White that'll come out right before their version of Snow White. Unfortunately, Disney pushed their film back a year, so this one just felt like completely randomly dropped. And having seen the movie, it has nothing to do with Snow White, and it has nothing to do with the Seven Samurai. They came up with a title that's fun, that if they actually did Snow White and the Seven Samurai, that actually pulled from both of those stories, whatever that would kind of look like, there's something hilarious and amazing that you could do with that. But that's not what this is. This is very much in the vein of Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey level of, let's just take a fun title and a fun, simple premise that you can say it real quick and people go, oh, that looks fun, and slap that cheap skin on our dreadful, generic action films. Dreadful acting, dreadful dialogue, just an abomination of a film. And, I can forgive a bad movie, but when you waste a title like Snow White and the Seven Samurai, that should be an amazing schlockfest, you get an F- for that. How dare you?
How dare you?
Number 7, Madam Web. Everyone has dunked on this movie repeatedly for the last 2 weeks about the unlikable characters that are flat, the performances with no charisma, charm, likability. We've all dunked on the fact that this is like the origin story to the origin story, that this is, instead of giving us the movie that they know we wanted, the one about actual spider people, spider women, instead of giving us that movie, it's giving us the origin story of their boss, the guy in the chair, as Ned discusses it. Here's how the guy in the chair got in the chair and met everybody.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Such like a wacky idea, and in particular because it's like Sony knew everybody just wants Spider-Man stuff. They know that. So the whole marketing campaign is teasing a villain that looks like Spider-Man, putting shots in of our Spider-Women that aren't really in the movie into the trailer because they're flash forwards. They're not part of the actual main storyline. teasing something that the movie absolutely does not deliver because they know that's what everybody wants. And then the movie is built around just the goofiest Easter eggs. Like, what do you think the Parker baby's name is going to be? It's Peter. I know, it's Peter. Like, that's sort of just goofy stuff that the whole movie's built around that. And if that's what the movie they wanted to make, why not just make a movie about spider people? Why would you do this whole backwards thing? It's frustrating because you could make a good movie about Madam Web. No, we just get this just terrible movie that doesn't do anything quite right. Everyone is awkward. Everyone seems to know that they're in a bad movie. Yikes.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Number 6, Lights Out. This is a new direct-to-video action film that's one part tournament fighter, one part corrupt cop movie. And to be very clear, there's a pretty significant gap between Madam Web, which will be in my bottom 10 of the year, and Lights Out, which will in no shape or form be anywhere close to my bottom 10 films of the year unless I take the next 8 months off from watching movies. So you get a movie like Lights Out, right? When I first saw it, its Rotten Tomatoes score was a 0%, which makes you think this thing's dreadful, but there's only like 5 reviews counted for it. So I watched the movie, and it's nowhere close to a 0% level of awful. There just weren't very many reviews counted for it. But it's also not good enough that I can also comfortably do this. Like, I watched it and I went, I think it's up to like 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I go, that feels a little bit low. I would like that score to be higher. At the same time, I've got a lot of problems with the movie, and I go, I don't think I can give it a thumbs up. I would easily go, yeah, it's right there in the middle, but I can't do that, so my heart is torn on what I should do. Anyway, so it stars Frank Grillo as this veteran that ends up finding himself being pulled into this underground fighting ring because of Mekhi Phifer. Reminded me an awful lot of the 1990 Jean-Claude Van Damme film Lionheart, one of my personal favorite Van Damme films. It's a good one. And so I dug that, but then very quickly, like, the plot starts shifting in this direction of the fighting ring is run by this shady guy that has connections to these corrupt cops, and this person over here owes money, and they're shaking her down, and because of that, our fighter guy's getting involved in their life to stop. And like, we went from nice, clean fighter film into corrupt cop movie, and fighter film is much better than corrupt cop movie. And it's like right in that frustrating spot. I like direct-to-video action films. I like that we're still kind of getting some tournament fighters and things like that from Frank Grillo in these direct-to-video ones, but this is one that it needed to pick its lane, and it didn't. Today's video is brought to you by Factor. In the last month alone, I went to Florida, then I went to Phoenix. I did some public speaking. I like to eat healthy, but I don't have a lot of time to prep healthy meals. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals make eating better every day easy. You get pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. No prep, no mess. Factor meals are 100% ready to heat and eat. You'll have over 35 options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie plus, and more. There's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. I like their protein smoothies to kick off the day with some protein. It's also flexible for your schedule. You can get as little or as much as you need, from 6 to 18 meals per week, and you can pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. Head to factormeals.com/SeanChandler50 and use code SeanChandler50 to get 50% off. That's code SeanChandler50 at factormeals.com/SeanChandler50 to get 50% off. The link is down below in the description. Next up, Argylle. Now, this is a movie that a lot of people treated as a punching bag, and it is a pretty easy target for a number of reasons, but I had fun with it. It's one of the tricky things when you kind of go to early screenings, press screenings, you see a movie before anybody else, you don't even know what the general consensus is or anything like that. You just go into it like, oh, that trailer looked like fun to me. You watch the movie and I had a big grin on my face. It has a lot of Romancing the Stone in it. My wife and I love Romancing the Stone, and so it's like a spy version of that. Bunch of actors that we like. Doesn't take itself too seriously. So big grins on our face. Like, yeah, it gets too wacky. Some of it doesn't make sense. It has too many twists and turns, but had fun with it. Get out of the theater, get on the internet, and it's like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. Yikes, what was that? That was weird. But at the end of the day, I had fun with it. I think it is flawed. They needed some restraint. At the same time, the best thing about the movie is that it just goes for it without concern. The worst thing about it is that it goes for it without concern. And when it works really well. And other times you're like, ooh, that was not so good. But really odd. Like, it's based off of a book that was published a month before the movie came out. My wife was interested enough that she read it. But the movie is not an adaptation of the book. The book is book 1 in a series. The movie is book 4 in the series.
And book 4, which is the movie's based around.
Okay.
You know, you have to, listen, Mr. Lucas was clever enough to start Star Wars at episode 4, so why not us?
And nobody knows who wrote the book. Because the author of the book that came out is the character in the movie. So no one knows exactly what's going on with all of this, but it's kind of interesting whenever they do wacky stuff like that. But when the movie's not quite good enough to justify being mysterious, then it just feels like one more thing like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are we doing with all of this? Number 4, Lisa Frankenstein. This is a movie written by Diablo Cody, who did Juno as well as Jennifer's Body. This one is much more in the vein of Jennifer's Body, but the thing was actually most interesting to me about this film is that it was directed by Zelda Williams, Robin Williams' daughter. So I actually went to go see this in Phoenix. I flew into Phoenix to go to Zach Pope's wedding. And I literally flew in, left my house at 4 a.m, flew in the morning, wedding was in the afternoon, and then I left the next day at 5 a.m. And so I had nowhere to be. I didn't have a hotel room or anything like that. I was like, I got 2 hours before I can go to the wedding. Let's just go to the movies, and went to go see it in that sort of kind of very random context. Really not too many expectations of what to get from the film. And it is a very offbeat, quirky film. It gets very weird. It's way more sexual than I was expecting it to be. But also, I appreciated almost all of those elements about it. Like, it's not one that I absolutely loved. It's not one that I'm like, man, I'm going to rewatch that all the time. But I appreciated that it knew what it was going for, and it went for it. It also very much has this kind of offbeat humor to it that reminded me a lot of the indie comedies from like 20 years ago. And they just had a way that they framed jokes that they weren't designed to be laugh out loud. They're just quirky ways that people interact, or the way that something's framed, or the way that something will happen and it'll just cut to something and they'll make a deadpan comment. I enjoy, and I don't feel I've seen it as much in movies recently, so it was like a return to something I enjoy, but also in this big, vibrant movie with bright, bold colors. Gets very dark, very twisted. I dug that. There's definitely things in it I went, whoa, okay. My line would have been here and you went way over here, but that's okay. So like I said, not one that I imagine I'll re-explore a lot, but it's like the kind of film I went, I'm glad I watched that at least once. In third place, sort of tied for first place, Land of Bad. To be perfectly clear, the top 3 movies on here are essentially tied in my brain. I literally shifted the order around while I was seated in this chair after I hit record because I couldn't really decide. At the end of the day, they're all kind of doing this. They're very different films. Each of them delivered what I was hoping for when I went to go see the film. None of them are like fantastic films. None of these movies are going to be in my top 10 at the end of the year. They delivered what they were supposed to offer. That'll bring us to Land of Bad. And this movie stars 2 different Hemsworth brothers. Not Chris, but the other 2 star in this one, as well as Russell Crowe, who's having a lot of fun, and Milo I always mispronounce his name. Let's just call him Milo Vegetables. Essentially, it's a fairly straightforward group of soldiers go in to do a mission, things go wrong, and so they're just trying to survive. It's one of those movies, but it's a good one of those movies. If you like survival military films, survival soldier films, you should go watch this film. It's a good one. And in particular, where we have a lot of movies, CGI, green screen, this is people on a location with fire exploding up around them, old school action. It feels very much like a movie that would have been a big hit back in the 90s, But movies like this just aren't put out by the big studio, so this one was made independently, didn't have great distribution, so there's no marketing for it. That's unfortunate because I think the target audience for movies like this will like this movie, but they don't know it exists. And maybe it's the kind of movie that will be saved on when it drops on Netflix or Amazon or whatever. If it drops on Amazon, that's where it really belongs. That's what the Amazon with Reacher, Terminal List, this movie would play great with that audience. And like I said, it's Russell Crowe, like at a phase in his career where he's just having a good time. He's great, even in a role that doesn't demand all that much from it. Our runner-up, but also kind of tied for number 1, Code 8 Part 2. So if you don't remember Code 8, it came out about 5 years ago. And essentially the thing it was most famous for is that it stars the Amell cousins. Stephen Amell, Robbie Amell, not brothers, they are cousins. They put out this movie together called Code 8 that's essentially combining together an X-Men sort of mythology where a percentage of the population have powers and they are persecuted for it, with a fairly straightforward plot line about underground crime where the guy with the good heart gets pulled into the world of crime for a noble cause and then gets in over his head as in his morals start to decline. The sort of movie that when you watch it on Netflix, and if you're into that kind of thing and you like the Amell cousins, you go, oh, I like that. That was pretty cool. That's what it's like. And ever since it came out, it did really well when it dropped on Netflix. So they said they wanted to do a second part. Finally comes out. So Code 8 Part 2, follow up to the first film, and it essentially, picks up years later, but it picks up right where the first film left off. So you can't just skip to Part 2. You have to watch Part 1 to follow the story. And I would say that Part 2 is a little bit better. It had all the stuff that I liked about the first film and about the kind of world building, the mythology, but I felt like it integrated the superpowered X-Men stuff and the crime side of things in a way that was more organic, and it didn't feel nearly as much like hey, we'll do a very generic film, but we'll make it interesting because the people have powers. The first one was a little bit of that. Like you could feel them mashing powers into this genre, where the second one is able to just iron out the kinks a little bit, and it just feels like its own thing better. I like both of the films quite a bit. I think they're very enjoyable. And so if you like kind of X-Men power stuff, if you like kind of street level heist crime stories and, the people with conflicting motivations and corrupt cops and bad guys, but maybe with a good side to them. If you like those types of stories, if you like the Amell brothers, cousins, I even called them brothers in there. If you like the Amell cousins, then it's absolutely worth checking these movies out. They're not going to be in my top 10 at the end of the year, but like a solid film like this, that when I would think of Netflix movies, this would be one of the better Netflix movies. But also tied for number 1, Ordinary Angels. And as I said before, this order was switching around before I started this, and I went, I don't know which one of these movies I want to be number 1. They all did their job, so they're all tied. And this isn't the type of movie I normally cover on my channel. It's sort of a faith-based movie. One of its studio production companies, Kingdom Stories, is a studio that mainly puts out Christian movies. And this is more faith-adjacent. It is inspiring. Characters go to church and they pray, but it doesn't stop to preach at you or try and proselytize you. It's just, it knows its target audience are church-going grandmas is the main people that are going to eat this movie up. But so with Ordinary Angels, it's based off real-life events. It stars Hilary Swank as a lady and Alan Richardson as this man who his wife recently died and his daughter's incredibly sick and she's dying. And they run a local newspaper article about it, and Hilary Swank does not know this family at all, but reads the article and is just inspired to try and do something to help them, though she herself is a total wreck of a human being that is a mess. And so you just kind of play out this story of just enormous emotional swings between seeing a child dying and in extreme jeopardy and the toll that it's taking on the father who is not able to save his daughter, that is not even really able to provide by himself what his daughter needs. And then big moments of victory as the stranger steps in to help and other people step in to help and provide what the family needs. And so it does these big swings, it tugs at the heartstrings, frequently manipulative in the way that it does it. And so that, like, the Hilary Swank character, when you say that's like she's deeply broken, it's that she's an addict. And one of the things that the movie kind of works into it is that her obsessive behavior towards helping this family is actually coming from her addiction. It's drunk behavior, but not just towards something different besides alcohol. And the way that it incorporates some of these ideas into it of taking something that is actually helping people is good. And the thing that we're being inspired by, it has more to it than just like, oh, shucks, she's a great lady. Oh, shucks, she's altruistic, just doing the right thing. It's not that simple. It's not that pure. There is a selfishness to what she's doing. Has more to it than you normally get. And it feels much more human. We're flawed. And even when we do really good things, we can have selfish motives behind what we're doing. Like, if you're in the mood for this kind of like tearjerker, inspiring film, you will start crying. Your eyes will be watering up multiple times throughout the film. But like I said, it has those layers to it. So of our movies that are tied for number one, this is the one that probably this one easily evoked the biggest emotions, and the one that probably surprised me the most, because it's the two below this are my thing. This one's not. So that's why in our tie, I put it on top for this final version. It comes in at number one. If you enjoyed this video, I've done more videos on my channel, actually thousands of them, and right over there, YouTube is recommending a video for you to check out. I don't even know what it's suggesting to you, so go check that one out. I'm sure it is incredible. Thank you so much for watching. Keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.